Hello and welcome to the EdjSports NFL betting preview for Week 17. This will be our last betting preview of 2021, though with the expanded regular season, this will not be the last betting preview of the regular season for the 2021-2022 season. Now, I am your host, Ian O'Connor, Senior Data Analyst here at EdjSports. And this week, there is no Thursday night football game, so I'll be taking a look at two of the biggest games of the week on Sunday, and then we'll be looking at our biggest projected blowout of the week as well, and then we've got a couple Moneyline Value picks for you too. Before jumping into all that, just want to give you the usual reminders. You can catch me every Thursday throughout the NFL season, previewing the upcoming weekend's action, as well as every Monday morning where I'm joined by our VP of Data Science, Scott Brown, to recap the weekend's action and decision-making. We'll take a look at the most impactful plays, which are the biggest win probability swings, as well as the best and worst fourth down decisions of the weekend. We'll also look at the betting preview of Monday Night Football for that week, though we will only have one more Monday Night Football betting preview that will come up next Monday, heading into or looking at Week 17. You can catch us on the EdjSports Podcast Network on your podcast platform of choice. Please be sure to subscribe, give us a 5-star review, and also subscribe to our EdjSports YouTube channel where you'll be able to catch these podcasts and our matchup previews that we do for every game of every week that will continue into the playoffs. You can also see our coach rankings videos that we do that Champion Gaming brand ambassador Katie George and I do each week. We will continue those into the playoffs as well, taking a look at those coaches that are left in the playoffs and some really looking at the coaching matchups, looking at the week ahead in the playoffs. And then if you haven't already, check out our site at edjsports.com. That is EdjSports.com, and download our app. It's available for both iOS and Android. So on the website and on the app, you can get pregame betting insights for every NFL game, including our fair value spreads and totals, which are basically where we think the spreads and totals should be. We use those to compare to the market, which you'll hear me say on the show if you're a new listener, and we'll take a look to see where we can find value. You also have the ability to track your bets to see the probability of them hitting, and you can input your bet, which team you bet on, or if it's the over or the under, can say what the odds were, how much you bet. It'll tell you your payout, and then throughout the game, it'll update so you can see the odds of that bet hitting, which is a really cool feature we've got. Now, this week, most of our spreads are pretty close to the market. Through 16 weeks, we've got a lot of data. We're pretty close on a lot of them. Still have some differences between some teams and some games. Really not much jumps out as great value on spreads. We do see some good value on some of the totals, just like we had last week. So for the games that I don't cover, I'll only be covering 3 of them today as far as an in-depth cover or preview of the spread and the total. Don't forget, again, you can see all the information for those other games at edjsports.com or on the app. So without further ado, I'll jump right into the first matchup between the Chiefs and Bengals. Now, this is one of the 2 biggest games of the week. It's the biggest game in the AFC. Game of the week in the 1 o'clock window as well. Now, Kansas City clinched the AFC West last week. They're 1 game ahead of Tennessee for the AFC's bye, so they still have a lot to play for, especially considering Tennessee has that head-to-head win over the Chiefs. If Tennessee were to win out, they've got games against Miami and Houston, very doable, and Kansas City were to drop one of their last 2, Tennessee, I believe, would get that top seed and the first-round bye and home field advantage. So still a lot to play for Kansas City, although they're the only AFC team that's clinched the division so far. But Cincinnati can do just that. They can clinch their first AFC North title since 2015 with a win. If not, they'll need some help. They'll need to win next week or get some help. If Cleveland goes 2-0, which would mean beating Cincinnati next week, and Cincinnati loses this game as well as the Ravens losing one of their next 2, Cleveland would win the division. So a lot still on the line for Cincinnati, along with all those AFC teams that haven't clinched yet. Now, Kansas City has won 8 straight after their early and midseason struggles where everyone was like, what is wrong with the Chiefs? Well, there's nothing wrong with those Chiefs right now. They're 5th in weighted DVOA, which gives less importance to those early season games. They're 5th in offense, 16th in defense overall, but that's only part of the story here. Kansas City is 2nd in offense, 4th in defense since week 10 in that second half of the season. They were only 29th in defense through the first 9 weeks. So that's really been a catalyst for them. And the offense has really come around, as I said, 2nd in the second half. But that defense has been phenomenal. That has really helped them on this 8-game winning streak. Cincinnati, on the other hand, not as good, but still pretty good. 12th in weighted DVOA, 19th in offense, 14th in defense on the season. Now, looking at their in-season splits, they're 9th in offense since week 10 and 13th in defense. So that defense is about the same. I know they started off really hot those first 4 or 5 weeks, have since fallen off a little bit. Just had that huge blowout of the Ravens, who are pretty depleted right now. That's not really saying a whole lot. And not to take away from their performance, Joe Burrow was awesome. And that team put up a ton of points, but I guess the Ravens seem like that. Not as as good as some of the other wins in the league. So pretty good matchup here. Kansas City does have the advantage. One thing that I noticed here could be a big game for Travis Kelsey, as it always could be. That is if he makes it back from the COVID list. I think I saw today that he was expected to come off. He may have been removed or is expected to be back. But Cincinnati, only 28th in DVOA against tight ends. And we all know what Travis Kelsey can do. Went off against the Chargers in the last game he played on that Thursday Night Football 2 weeks ago. So keep an eye on him. Cincinnati's going to try and keep an eye on him, but a little bit easier said than done. So looking at the spread on this one, the market sits at Kansas City -5. Our edge fair value, again, is our projected spread where we think the spread should be, is Kansas City -3.5. So Cincinnati has a little bit of edge to cover here, 60.4% chance to cover +5, 63.4% chance to push or cover +5. So almost, not quite 2/3, but getting up over that 60% is a decent shot there. We expect this one to be close. Cincinnati does have a little bit better chance to win than the market, given our difference in spread. We'll get to that one. Cincinnati actually is one of our money line picks, so I'll get to that one a little bit later on. A couple notes on the spread here. Kansas City actually has won 6 straight against the spread within their 6-game or 8-game winning streak. Cincinnati, though, has alternated 2 wins against the spread, 2 losses against the spread since week 3. So they're due for one here. I think they've won actually their last 2 against the spread, so they're due for a loss here. Doesn't necessarily mean that they will. But the trends, Kansas City has been really good lately, both straight up and against the spread. Now, looking at the total, the market's at 49.5. We are very, very close at 50 points. So the slightest of edges, 52.5% chance for this game to exceed 49.5 points. This is a higher total compared to the rest of them this week. There are a couple sub 40 totals. There's, I think, a 40.5, a 41.5. So 49.5 ends up being one of the higher of the week in the market. Now, 3 straight overs have hit for Kansas City after the under went 6-1 for part of the season there. Cincinnati, the over is 6-2-1 in their last 9 since they had 5 straight unders. So these teams were in a lot of lower scoring affairs, at least compared to the market total earlier in the season. Both of the overs have been really hot lately. So again, we have a slight edge for that to go over. Not a huge advantage there, though. And then looking at the public betting, always something we want to look at. 81% of the bets and 95% of the money are on Cincinnati. Now, it's early. A little surprising to me. I would expect that to change by Sunday, just the way the Chiefs have played lately. Cincinnati's been good too, but Kansas City has just looked like one of, if not the best team in the NFL. So I would expect to see, especially in a game this close, to see 95% of the money on one team is pretty surprising. So don't be surprised to see those values come down a little bit as we get closer to Sunday. Now, just to recap this one, value on Cincinnati to cover, very slight value on the over. We've got the Bengals 63.4% chance to push or cover +5, and then 52.5% chance for this game to exceed 49.5 points. Moving on to another game in the 1 o'clock window, not necessarily a good game, but it is our biggest projected blowout of the week, Atlanta at Buffalo. Buffalo, we have at 90% chance to win, one of the largest of the season. That might be the largest. I don't remember if we've had one over 90%. So Buffalo, huge favorites here. Really no surprise. Buffalo, second in weighted DVOA. They're 6th in offense, 2nd in defense overall. They've been the 3rd best offense in the second half of the season, only 11th in defense. But against this Atlanta team, that's really not a huge concern. Obviously, Buffalo missing cornerback Tre'Davious White for the season, but still have a very good defense there. Atlanta, 32nd in weighted DVOA, dead last. Yet they have 7 wins and they're still in playoff contention somehow. Well, that somehow is they have wins over the Giants, the Jets, Jacksonville, Carolina, Detroit, and then Miami and New Orleans. So all of those teams are 26th or worse in DVOA, except Miami, who's 22nd, and New Orleans, who's 14th. So beaten up on the bottom of the barrel teams there. They are one of them themselves. They can't beat themselves, obviously. They can beat themselves. They have done it in some games. But, beaten up on bad teams that have kept them in playoff contention in that wide open wild card in the NFC. Really not much else to look at on this one. Atlanta, 28th in offense, 31st in defense. Again, Buffalo, overwhelming favorites here. Really one of the few games we see some value on the spread. Not a huge value. A lot of the other games I mentioned, they were pretty close. The market has Buffalo -14.5. It opened at 13.5. So it's been bet a point in Buffalo's favor. Our edge fair value is Buffalo -16. I mentioned they're our largest favorite of the week. It's not often we like double-digit market favorites even more than the market. This is one of those instances. So Buffalo we have with 53.1% chance to cover -14.5. Again, not a lot of value, still slight value. We see a little bit more in this one than some of our other games. Atlanta has lost 2 straight against the spread. Buffalo's won 2 straight against the spread. So don't be surprised to see that trend continue with Atlanta dropping a third, Buffalo winning a third. Again, though, still 53.1%. So not overly confident, not, in the 60s, 65 like we saw with Cincinnati up there, but still Buffalo. Don't be surprised to see them cover that 14.5, that very large spread. Now looking at the total, the market is at 44.5, pretty average for this week. Again, compared to the rest of the games with a lot of low totals this week. And I think only 1 or 2 games maybe above 50 on the market. Our edge fair value is 49. We do see quite a few games that we have totals in the 50s. So not necessarily our highest or one of our highest of the week, but up there. 62.3% chance for this game to exceed 44.5 points. So based on our simulation model and over 62% of the simulations, these two teams combined for more than 44.5 points. And over 2/3 of those points are scored by Buffalo. No surprise there. Now, Atlanta, the under is 6-1 in the last 7. Buffalo has 3 straight overs after alternating 2-2 in their previous 8. So something's going to give here. Buffalo's either going to have an under finally, or Atlanta's going to have an under, but Atlanta's going to have an over. So we'll see. We're expecting the over to have a little bit more, or to occur more often. So we've got some value in the over. Now looking at this, 94% of the bets are on Buffalo, but 61% of the money is on Atlanta. So that's a little surprising to me. At the same time, if you really think about it, that 14.5 point spread is a large number. So a lot of people, thinking Atlanta is going to be able to cover that. Again, surprising, not too surprising. That's just a large spread. And Buffalo, too, has been the most inconsistent team this season in terms of Football Outsiders variance metric. That just shows basically how consistent a team is. They've got, I think, Aaron Schatz had tweeted out or said they have 4 games over 50% DVOA, but then they've got a lot of games that are lower. The loss to Houston earlier in the year was a big one. I believe it was Houston that they lost today. The one big upset that was really surprising to see. Jacksonville, not Houston. They lost the 9-6 to Jacksonville. So they've got games like that, but then they've got games like the one just this past week against New England where they looked really good. So really kind of hard to get a grip on them, but they have been very good of late, especially offensively. So really like Buffalo. Recapping that one, slight Buffalo at least to cover, 90% to win straight up. And then we've got a lot of value on the over in this one. Buffalo, 53.1% chance to cover, minus 14.5. So to win by more than 2 touchdowns and 2 extra points. And 62.3% chance for this game to exceed 44.5 points. Now moving on to that other game of the week. This is the game of the week in the NFC and in the late afternoon window. We've got 2 teams in Dallas and Arizona moving in opposite directions. Arizona has lost 3 straight. They've lost control of the NFC West. The Rams are now a game ahead. Very similar to what we saw from them last season when we had Arizona started off pretty hot. It wasn't 7. They weren't undefeated like they were this year. But Kyler Murray got hurt, kind of missed a game or 2. I think played through it. But the offense, the whole team really just kind of fell off. And we're seeing that again this year. So a little concerning there if you're an Arizona fan. As for Dallas, they've won 4 straight. They clinched the NFC East last week, absolutely blew out Washington on Sunday night. And now they're just a game behind Green Bay for first in the NFC. So if Green Bay were to slip up in these next 2 games against Minnesota and Detroit, not likely, at least in that second one, but Detroit has given the Packers some fits in those last games of the season sometimes. And we know Minnesota can beat them. They beat them just a few weeks ago. So if they were to slip up and Dallas is able to win their next 2, we could see, or even they're only 1 game back, so they just have to make up 1 game there. And Dallas wins their next 2. They would be looking at home field advantage in that number 1 seed and first round bye in the playoffs. So still a lot to play for both of those teams. Now, Dallas moved up to first in DVOA this past week. They're 8th in offense, first in defense. Now, the Dallas offense is only 12th since week 10. They were 5th early in the season, started off pretty hot, but they have the number 1 defense since week 10. Obviously, I just mentioned the number 1 defense overall. They've been that defense has just been dominant. Micah Parsons going to win defensive rookie of the year. Very well could win defensive player of the year as well as a rookie. Trayvon Diggs at 11 interceptions now, just 3 off the NFL record of 14. So just been a really good season for that Dallas defense, who was pretty bad last year. Now the Cardinals, they've fallen to 9th in overall DVOA. They're 14th in weighted DVOA, again, which gives less value to those early season games in which they were pretty dominant. 16th in offense, 5th in defense. They've been worse since week 10. No surprise, 23rd on offense. 3 of those games, to be fair, were without Kyler Murray, but he struggled since returning. And then 14th in defense since week 10. They were 2nd through 9 weeks. So a really big drop off for those teams. So Dallas has a pretty big advantage here. The market sees them as 5.5 point favorites, opened at 2.5. So they've been bet 3 points over that 3-point threshold, which is pretty big, all the way up to 5.5, almost a touchdown. So going to be interesting. This one, we've actually got this Dallas -7. So we give Dallas 53.6% chance to cover -5.5. Again, not a huge number, but still, we like Dallas. We think the spread should be about 1.5 points higher. So we like the Cowboys. Now, Arizona has lost 3 straight against the spread, but they are 5-0 straight up as underdogs this season. So in all 5 games they've been underdogs, they have won the game. So something to keep note of. Now, Dallas has won 4 straight against the spread. They're 12-4 on the season, which is now the best record. They passed Green Bay for best record against the spread. They won 7 straight to start the season against the spread. So only 5-4 since then. But again, they've won 4 straight when it comes to betting against the spread. Now, looking at the total on this one, the market sits at 51.5 points. Our edge for value only 47. So 62.7% chance to fall short of 51.5 points. Not too surprising to me, considering the strong defenses. Both of the teams really have been inconsistent on offense lately. Dallas had that big output last week, still had some defensive scores like they've had the last couple of weeks, and really even struggled against the Giants in a game. The other game against Washington started off hot and then kind of fell apart in the last half of the game, almost blew that game. So really the defenses we think are going to be a little bit better in this one and hold the scoring below 51.5. Still 47 is a lot of points, especially when you're looking at the market lines for this week. Not one of our highest, probably about the middle of the pack in terms of our model on these games. And Dallas is 7-2. The under is 7-2 in the last 9. The over hit last week, though, after 3 straight unders, but a lot of unders. So we kind of history, I guess, if you will, the trend the last couple months says this one could go under, and we like the under as well. Now, 60% of the money is on Arizona. Maybe a little bit surprising, maybe not too surprising to you out there. And then we've got 92% of the bets on Dallas. So a lot of the retail bets on Dallas, but again, 60% of the money on Arizona. So looking at that, it was a little surprising to me at first, but we've seen what this Arizona team can be. It seems that, people betting large amounts of money are expecting them to bounce back, at least keep it close. I mentioned it's up to 5.5 points. So, if they can keep it close there to a field goal or so, they would cover there. But, it kind of reminds me of what we saw with Kansas City last year, where kind of early in the season, middle of the season, kept waiting for them to turn it on, and they finally did. So maybe that's what people are thinking here with Arizona. A big game against Dallas with a lot on the line is gonna kind of do it for them and get them back playing well. So recapping this one, nearly no value on the spread. I did mention, a decent amount, 53.6% chance for Dallas to cover -5.5. Not a huge amount, but still got the edge there. And then we've got slight value on the under. Again, the under we've got at 62.7% chance to hit at that 51.5 points. Now, moving on to the Moneyline Value portions of the show. Again, if you haven't been with us before, or if you've forgotten, it's been a while since you've listened, this is where we're looking at our pregame win probability for a team, comparing it to the market implied win probability based on their Moneyline odds to say, hey, we like this team. We think they have a higher chance to win than the market does. Sometimes they're both going to be favorites, so we could have a team at 65% chance to win, whereas the market has them at 55%. And even though we both think they're favorites, there's a little bit more value there. Sometimes, and like we have this week, we'll have a team that still we don't think they're going to win. They might be a 40% chance to win by our model, but the market has them priced at only like 25% chance to win. So you're paying for a 1-4 versus a 2-5 when we're looking at our model. So last week, missed on Detroit again. We're so close. It seems like we have been so many times. They've got a couple wins, but Detroit had first and goal at the 9, 40 seconds left against Atlanta, and down 4. And Tim Boyle filling in for Jared Goff through interception on first down. So missed it there, but we're so close to Detroit coming through against Atlanta. And I mentioned earlier, Cincinnati, it's kind of an obvious pick here based on our spreads. We have them -3.5 or +3.5 compared to +5 in the market. Ends up being one of the best games of the week. Covered this. We still have Cincinnati as an underdog to win. This is one of those I mentioned. We don't necessarily think they're going to win most of the time or more often than not, but a better chance than the market. We have them at 44% chance to win versus a market implied 34%. So about a 10% difference we have versus that price in the market. Personally, I'm not sure they'll beat Kansas City. I don't know. It's close. We know Cincinnati can play with them and has a chance to win. Depends on if their defense can kind of play a little bit better like they did early in the season. And they haven't been terrible, still top half of the league. But I think Kansas City is just playing too well. Our model, though, likes them a little bit better. There have been a couple times I've gone against the model, especially on this show with the Vikings against Green Bay, Miami against Baltimore earlier. And I was wrong. The model was right. So, I think I would lean towards Kansas City. Our model, though, like Cincinnati a little bit better. Miami, just mentioned, is another one. They've won 7 straight. Their opponent this week, the Titans, got off to an unsustainable start based on the underlying metrics. They've come back down to earth, losing 3 of 5. They're still the 2 seed in the AFC, but early on, they were, I think, 7-2. We had them, Football Outsiders had them low teens, maybe 20, 21, 22 in DVOA, and we got caught a lot of flack for that. But based on the underlying metrics, they were winning some close games. They were winning games where they were actually outperformed, just finding a way to come away with a win, which matters in the NFL. Wins get you into the playoffs, but definitely come back down to earth. Like Cincinnati, we have Miami as the underdog, but we like them better than the market price. Miami, 47% chance to win. So this one's really close, almost a 50-50 split. The market implied win probability is only 39%. So about an 8% edge there. Miami playing very well lately. These two teams, though, pretty evenly matched. Miami is 19th, Tennessee's 20th in weighted DVOA, separated by only 0.1% in DVOA. I think it's 3.8 and 3.7%. 0% is average. So neither team great. A little bit above average in terms of DVOA, lower, in the bottom half of the league still, though. The offense is pretty much the same. Miami's 23rd, Tennessee's 22nd. The difference comes on defense. There is some spread, not a huge amount of spread, but Miami has been top 10 in defense while at number 7, while Tennessee is 12th. So Miami, again, that defense playing really well, able to come away some wins. Tua, while he hasn't been great, has been kind of good enough to complement that defense. So we give Miami a little bit better chance to win at 47%. So that will wrap up our Week 17 betting preview here at EdjSports. Just a quick recap for those of you keeping track at home. If you missed anything, between Kansas City and Cincinnati, we give the Bengals 63.4% chance to push or cover +5. We give that game 52.5% chance to exceed 49.5 points. So more value on the spread than the total. Atlanta at Buffalo, we give Buffalo 53.1% chance to cover -14.5. Again, that's a big spread, but we give them a slight edge. And again, in this one, we've got more value on the total than the spread, 62.3% chance to exceed 44.5 points, with obviously Buffalo scoring most of those points. Arizona at Dallas, 53.6% chance to cover, -5.5. Again, close there, just like that Buffalo game, but 62.7% chance to fall short of 51.5 points. So almost identical values between Buffalo to cover, Dallas to cover, and those totals. We like the under, though, in Arizona at Dallas versus the over in Atlanta versus Buffalo. And then those two Moneyline values I just went over. Cincinnati, 44% chance to win outright versus a market implied 34% against Kansas City. And then Miami, 47% chance to win versus a market implied 39% against Tennessee. So that will do it for Week 17's betting preview. Be sure to check out all of our pregame betting insights for Week 17, again, on our website, EdjSports.com. That's EdjSports.com. And then our EdjSports app as well. Again, that's available for both iOS and Android. You can get all of this pregame betting information, fair value totals, fair value spreads, market lines, market totals. You can see all the public betting on there as well as our pregame win probability. There's a lot of good information on there. And then don't forget to come back on Monday to hear our weekend recap and our last Monday Night Football betting preview between the Cleveland Browns and Pittsburgh Steelers. That's a big one for Cleveland. So come back, make sure you listen, and we'll recap all the action from this coming up weekend. Please subscribe to the EdjSports Podcast Network, again, on your preferred podcast platform. Give us a 5-star review, help us grow our audience, and don't forget about our EdjSports YouTube channel as well, where you can see all of our matchup previews for every game of every week. And then you can also see our coach rankings updates there. Don't forget to check back on Wednesdays for our head coach rankings update. We got one that just went out yesterday on our on the EdjSports YouTube channel with our Champion Gaming brand ambassador, Katie George. We do have a new number 1 atop our coach rankings, so you have to check that out to see who is now number 1. Again, thank you for listening. Enjoy the Week 17 action, and have a safe and happy New Year.